Hello and welcome to the Connection Compass podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Louise Evans. Before we start this week's episode, I'd like to tell you about a new community that I'm starting, Seasons and Cycles. It's a place where we learn, grow, develop, and heal and transform through the cycles of the seasons and the moon cycles too. If you'd like to join us, we're having an opening ceremony on Sunday, the 21st of December at 7 o'clock GMT under the influence of the new moon and also the winter equinox. If you'd like some more information, the details are in the show notes. But back to today's podcast. So in today's episode, I'm joined by Cheung, founder and licensed holistic practitioner behind Karma Healing Space. May's work weaves together traditional East Asian medicine, modern scientific understanding, and a deeply intuitive, attuned presence. Her approach reminds us that healing isn't something that happens in isolation or through one modality alone. It's about understanding the body as a whole, honouring its natural rhythms, and creating space for stillness, listening, and wisdom to emerge. Hi, May. Welcome to the Connection Compass podcast. It's lovely that you're here. For our listeners, please could you share a little bit about yourself?
I've trained in therapy work for a long time. My background's massage therapies, but then I realised massage only took people up to a certain point. It never really got rid of the problem. You know, they still come back with the same muscle pains. And then because of my own issues, I started looking into acupuncture because I had back pain since my 20s, and it just got worse where if I walked for a bit, I had to sit down. I just never really put the two together, but I always started, and if I stood for too long, I had to sit down. And then it was only when I did some other courses, like the Gua Sha, where you use the jade tool, that's when I met this professor of acupuncture. And then I had a treatment with him because my back pain was that bad. And he took the whole health history and then said, your back pain that you've had for all this time is actually a gynecological issue. And at the time, I actually thought, what is he talking about? And then as I learned more from him, it all made sense because our whole body's connected. When we have pain in our back, usually for women, it comes from the front. So it's our uterus. And it tends to be from a gynecological issue. And I'm talking about chronic back pain, not something where people, like push themselves too hard in the gym and pulled muscle. Obviously, there's that kind of back pain. But I had it just consistently for decades. And then I did notice it was worse during my period, but as women, we just assume it's normal, don't we? Because so many of our girlfriends have the same thing and just think, oh, well, that's just what happens when you have a period. But it's actually an imbalance in the body. That's why you have the back pain. A healthy period shouldn't have any pain at all. And then it should be mild flow as well. And that's what made me go into acupuncture. And then that's what made me passionate. I realised when I went networking that what came up naturally from when I started speaking was my passion was to help women who are going through similar issues. But now that I've got the knowledge, I can actually help them and actually educate them. That's not your normal. You don't have to put up with it. It's not a healthy normal.
When the professor of acupuncture connected the pain to gynecological issues, how did that make you feel? Was it like a relief? Did it resonate?
No, actually, I did think it was a bit. It took a while to put the two together. At the time, I just always thought it was a muscular issue. And then, I did yoga, I did Pilates, the usual, which did help relieve the problem. It's the fact that it just got worse. And then one time, I did push myself too much doing burpees. And I just couldn't get up from the floor. I was crawling for a week. I'm not even joking. My partner had to help me to the toilet. It was that bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I just couldn't stand on my feet. And then from that moment, that happened again another time when I went to visit my mum, and she had some cocodamol, and she gave that to me in order for me to get the train back to Manchester because I just couldn't. The pain was so bad when I had my body weight on my feet. It would just radiate up my legs and into my back. I just couldn't stand up. But when the cocodamol kicked in, I was able to get the train back up to Manchester. She dropped me off at the train station. And that's when I realized I needed to do something else. Yes, I recovered that time after a week. And then when it came back again, I was thinking, right, okay, there's something more serious. And then you start worrying, don't you? Thinking, oh my gosh, what could it be?
Yeah.
I thought it was kidneys, actually. So in a way, I guess it was a relief that it was gynecological issues, because not like a severe kidney problem. Now looking back, just like think, like, if only I had those skills and the knowledge back then, I could have told my younger self I didn't have to put up with that, because I was
Yeah.
really heavy period.
And
Yeah.
that's what you're doing. You want to help women. You want to give women that knowledge
Yeah.
to prevent them from going through pain unnecessarily.
That's right.
One of the aspects of your work is that stillness is important
Mm.
for healing. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
So when we are still and when we find time to be quiet, that's when our body can do most of its healing. It's not rushing around just trying to keep us moving. I think a lot of the time people forget we are a biological machine. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with an instruction manual. Most of the knowledge comes from, ancestral knowledge and wisdom that's passed on through the generations, the people who survived. If people look at where we are now, and then think back how many generations of people had to go through lots of hardships, have the knowledge to survive in the wilderness, and then have the knowledge of what correct food to eat. And most people, before Western allopathic medicine came in with them pharmaceuticals, people just use the knowledge of herbs, use the knowledge of food to get well. And if you think about all those generations back, and we are the ones who managed to survive in the 21st century, our ancestors were amazing to get us to where we are now. And I think that people are starting to realize that and reaching for that ancient knowledge again, back to the natural medical route. And when I say, and natural medicine is just food and eating the right food. And there's lots of things coming out about fast food, convenient food, processed food, because people just had more time to cook from scratch. I mean, I know people do say processed food is bad, but when you're working all the time, it's hard to find that time to cook from scratch. And that knowledge is also lost as well. There's a couple of generations when processed food came into the supermarket, and they just didn't have parents cooked in the kitchen, and then they learnt from that. We've got two generations of people who've lost that skill set. And that's why there are charities and there are people who are starting cooking classes to teach people and educate people again. But your question about stillness is, we are so busy and our body's constantly trying to catch up, because we don't appreciate our body. We think, oh, we can just go to bed late, we can chuck whatever we want in our bodies, like all these unhealthy food. Then our body actually has to work harder to get rid of this junk, and also try and maintain the stress levels as well. If we're not letting ourselves rest and recover properly, yes, the body can keep going, but then it's also to the point where you're using up all your fuel. And that's why people end up reaching burnout, or they start realizing, why is my body functioning optimally? And people get frustrated. It's like, well, what have you done? Do you rest properly? No, I do not. But people just expect their bodies just keep running.
And I think what you said already about us being very, very fast paced, that even when we think that we're slowing down, I don't think we are slowing down. It's not proper rest. It's not proper stillness. And I have a bit of a thing where I say to myself, even when I've slowed down, slow down some more. And it's in that slowing down and in that stillness that we can actually hear our bodies. We can hear what our body's trying to tell us. So, heart, soul, heart, mind. We can hear our body speaking to us to say, stop.
Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe sometimes people don't want to slow down because they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
They don't want to acknowledge the pains. I think, sort of following on from what you said, I think this is why lots of people struggle during the pandemic. It almost forced, I know some people really well, this is what I'm leading on to. People did struggle during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a brilliant time. I got to spend time with my family. I didn't have to work and I still got paid. I'm not going to complain about that. But other people really, really, I did, okay, I did struggle because it made me think about stuff that I just squashed and that
Yeah.
came to the surface. And I think that happened for a lot of people. Stuff that they just managed to squash by either distracting themselves with work, distracting themselves with social life and their friends, while just sat in stillness, which is what we're talking about. All this stuff just bubbles up to the surface. You can't run away from it. We literally couldn't run away from it during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of people struggled with dealing with it. They didn't really have to help to deal with it. I started reading during the pandemic. I actually started reading more like about spiritual philosophy, which really helped me get through those times. But not everyone has that aspect where they can fall back on. So this is why people don't want stillness. That's just what I think anyway.
I always said, because there's lots of different aspects to the pandemic, but I have always said it was a call to go inwards and that people would struggle. But I appreciate you if you're not used to reading about spiritual philosophy. There was no preparation there for that.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I in total agreement with what you're saying. So you support women through every stage, like from conception right through to menopause. And I had a look at the Karma Healing Space website, and I just felt lit up when you taught about there being wisdom in menopause because, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but there is a lot of negative talk out there. People portray it as a disempowerment, and it actually makes me feel quite anxious when I see people talking about menopause in that way. I feel very, very anxious, and so it's like a breath of fresh air to hear somebody talk about the wisdom. So can we talk a little bit about the wisdom of menopause?
Of course, of course. So in East Asian medicine, menopause is known as the second spring, also the autumnal phase of our life cycle. The reason why it's called second spring is because, so for example, during puberty, there was that massive transition. It went from a little girl into this blossoming young woman, her whole body completely changed. And then in a way, it's like a new evolution. It's a rebirth during the menopause. But in the West, where we have a massive, maybe not just the West, maybe like developed societies, it is more male focused. It's more male centric. And I think that's where the issue is if you look at fairy tales, how witches are depicted. It's a bent over, ugly old woman. And then they use words like crone and hag. And then I did some research. The word crone and hag were actually used by women to define that period in their life. But then took those words, those labels, and turned it into something really negative. And all the focus is on young women. That's when you're beautiful. That's when you have more attention and things. And women notice it as they get older. They just become invisible. Men, as they age, it's talked about like fine wine.
Mhm.
They hold themselves with more confidence even when they've aged, whereas women just start to become a shadow of themselves. And I think because of the way society talks about it naturally makes us have that narrative. We become that narrative. We become fearful. We become smaller because that's what society has told us to be once we reach that stage. And the truth is, people think it's from 50s onwards, that's when menopause starts. Yes, the definition of menopause is when the period stops for 12 months. That's menopause. But the menopausal symptoms that people are aware of, like the hot flushes, the brain fog, that starts from around like roughly from age 36. That's when your womb starts shrinking on average. So when people start having those symptoms, it's quite scary because in the media, everyone knows menopause is linked with being old. At the age of 36, that's still quite a low number. Like you always you think, God, I can't be old. I don't even feel it. So it's hard to navigate it. And no one tells people talk about the 50s, but people don't tell women that expect the changes from age 36. So we're not prepared for it. So and that's a shock. And going back to your question, so the wisdom of menopause in a lot of indigenous cultures and some Eastern cultures, because obviously everyone romanticizes Eastern cultures, but to be honest, Eastern cultures have been influenced by the Western world, but the ones who are more traditional, they still embrace the older wise woman. It's the woman who has all the knowledge. It's the woman you turn to for nurture, for the medical knowledge. That's what. And in some cultures, they can look forward to being older because that's when the younger generation starts having that respect. And a friend of mine told me, she's Muslim, and she said, I couldn't wait to be a certain age because then everyone will call me auntie and I'm respected. And the kids will like stand up tall as soon as I walk into the room. And I think we've kind of lost that.
What I was saying before about the posts that I see, and sometimes it causes that anxiousness. I sailed through menopause, so I didn't have any of the symptoms at all. And I would say I was probably going through it through the pandemic. Or it may be that I didn't notice it, maybe, because I was a nurse on the COVID wards. But I found it a particularly empowering time. I feel I'm more in alignment with coming into my second spring, but I think there's so much information out there and the focus is on the symptoms and how people struggle and it not with it being in alignment with the second spring. So it was that was making me anxious because I was like, should I be experiencing this? What should I be experiencing? And why am I not experiencing this? So it was the other way around for me. And yeah, I'd really love to see more of that out there about it being a more empowered time.
It is empowering because one of the things is energetically we have that shift. So as women, we're naturally more, I don't know how I could actually end up doing a whole podcast on this. I'm just going to talk about it briefly. So as women, so this is not about being sexist or anything like that, because I know sometimes people might jump on something, but as women, we are naturally more yin.
Yes.
Yin is the feminine energy. That's who we are, because we represent the feminine energy. And that means we are cold. As in energetically, I don't mean like we're heartless. just to make sure people are clear about that. And then when we think, we actually take time to make decisions, or we are natural nurturers. Okay, so then with the masculine energy, the yang energy, that's like impulsive, that's really fast energy. Or just think of someone who's extreme ADHD, that's almost like a yang energy. So then what happens is when we go through the menopause, there's this energetic change and then more yang energy comes in. And then women notice, when I mention this to women, they actually say, oh, actually, now you say that, I have noticed I don't take any nonsense. That doesn't just come with lifelong experience. It's also because energetically we are changing. So we're more sure, we're more sure of ourselves. We know who our friends are. And if people push us around, we don't take it. We're not people pleasers anymore. Whereas, as young women, I know that's what society tells women how we should be. It's almost like we have that inner strength, like what men just naturally have. They don't put up with certain people. They're more bold. They stand in their space. They stand in their energy. They're really proud of who they are. And this is something women need to step into more when they have that change rather than focusing on the fact that, oh gosh, I'm old now. Oh. And like you said before, focusing on the symptoms. Symptoms is something we can manage through diet. That doesn't define who we are. And then what people need to focus on is to strip back, who are we, and really focus on the answers.
Yeah. I wonder if that is why I didn't have a particular rough ride. I would say I eat quite well. I lots of fresh. I try and make from scratch as much as practically possible, but also I've engaged in healing and spiritual practices for 15, 16, 18, I don't know, quite for some time. And I often wonder, is that why? And very energetic aware. So, as you know, I do a lot of work around the seasons and the yin and the yang and the moon cycles, that waning, waxing. So you've got a yin energy and a yang energy within the waxing and the waning and the moon cycles. So I pay attention. I pay attention to this. Is that why it wasn't a rough ride for me?
Yes, I think so. You navigated the seas really well. That's what you've done.
Yes.
You were a
Yeah.
good sailor. Whereas some people just have this big tsunami and it hits them and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't
Yeah.
expect that.
Because like you said, as you said, Ray, there's no preparation for it, and you can quite easily become overwhelmed by the information that's out there. So you mix science and informed practice and deep intuition in your work. Why is it so important to have those two modalities together, working side by side?
I just think people now, whether they have a science background or not, they like to have the scientific backing to things we say. I mean, I don't actually completely disagree. It's good to have that because otherwise, going back to Victorian times when you had the con men was what came to mind with their jackets and going, oh, I've got this magical cure for X, Y, Z. And then people weren't as knowledgeable, they weren't as educated, so they just buy it because people are desperate. I mean, even now, like modern times, there is that desperation out there. But there is a different kind of overwhelm. And I was saying to somebody, one of the overwhelm is this, like social media, for example. There'd be somebody who said, "Oh, I went through menopause, say, and this is what I did, and it, really, really helped me." And when you're in that desperate mode, you'll watch that person and then you think, right, I'm going to get exactly what that person got. They will try it. And then at first they're really excited. They think, finally, I might have found something that would really help me. But then they try it for a few months and nothing and doesn't work. And that's because each one of us, we are different. So just because that person's shouted on social media, this worked for me, is amazing, everyone else should do it. They don't have that knowledge, that medical knowledge to actually then back it up for someone else. Because each person comes into my clinic, for example, I don't give them the same protocol that I used on, say, just random name, not a real client, say Deborah. And then Jane comes in. I'm not going to use the same as what I used on Deborah last week because she is her own person. She comes with her own, even if the symptoms are similar, her symptoms might be a slightly different energetic and internal body imbalance. Okay, the resulting symptoms might, in say Western medicine, might be the same, but that doesn't mean her internal imbalance is the same. And I think that's key. And then when people go through, because it does take people will try something for several months before they finally think, okay, it's not working. But then you've already lost 3 months. So then you try something else. But the worst bit, I think, it's emotionally draining because you go through that high of, I think I've finally found something that's going to help me. And then when it doesn't work, you kind of go in that dip. And then you have to go through the whole searching for something again. And financially, it costs as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think in order to convince people as well, I mean, in the 21st century, there are still people out there who think, oh, acupuncture, oh, that's a whole load of nonsense. And what annoys me, talking about this, yes, I think it's great you have scientific backing. What annoys me is people who have those opinions tend to be people who've never even tried it. And I think, well, okay, you think acupuncture is nonsense, fine. And I have to explain it to you if you're willing to listen. But then every pill and every drug you're prescribed by your GP, do you do the background research on the studies, how it works, how effective it is, what the other side effects? No, you just take it. You don't question it. So why are you questioning what I do, which is completely natural and works on your body? I'm not putting anything foreign in your body, yet you question it, but you're quite happy to take a pharmaceutical drug that has numerous side effects because they have to put the side effects down to cover themselves legally. And then sometimes you're given another tablet to counteract the side effect, and then another one to counter that side effect. It doesn't really heal the body. And one of the things I want people to take away is, yes, okay, you've got this label now, but were you born with that label? Say people end up with chronic fatigue, which to me, that's just a build-up of chronic stress. And then the body's just saying, right, I'm going to shut you down because you just won't rest. So I'm going to do it for you because you've been ignoring me. I've shouted, I've tried to sound the alarm, and you still carry on. So now I'm going to shut you down, so you have to rest. That's my thinking. But then people carry that label and think, okay, I've got chronic fatigue now. Yes, but were you born chronic fatigue? No. Your body can go back to the state it was. It just needs educating. You need to eat the right foods if you're willing. I'm not saying, that some people just aren't willing to change, which is fine because that's their choice. But if you really want to get better, you need to focus on your food and also speak to someone who's actually had the education, who's got that knowledge, not just look on social media and follow some influencer. It's a truth. Just because they got fancy social media reels does not mean they're knowledgeable.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can we talk about your training in traditional Eastern Asian medicine a little bit more? Because it's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm going to do a social media post from this, Andrea. Maybe I'll just splice this video and put it out there. So, one of the things I need to put out there is there are lots of people training in acupuncture. The difference with me is, I don't know if people notice, but I'm not white, English, Western. My ethnic background is Chinese. And I grew up with first-generation immigrants, and it was multi-generational living. So I lived with my grandparents and my mom as well. I don't want to go into too many private details. And they came from Hong Kong, but they weren't city folk. They were like the country folk. And it's a bit like here. People laugh at the country folk, country bumpkin, all that stuff. But my grandparents actually still carry that old knowledge where changing seasons, they would say, I remember them always saying, oh gosh, the season's changing. We need to make this broth. We need to have this food. And at the time, I didn't appreciate it. Food was just on the table. And being second generation immigrant, growing up, I was born here. I just, in a way, I kind of resented it because I just wanted to be like my friends in school and have the Western meals and things. And now looking back, I appreciate it a lot more. That knowledge that kept me healthy gave me the great foundation, because when we're young, that our foundation is key. We might be born with great genetics and stuff, but if we lay down those foundations, it makes us stronger later on as well. So I personally think, yes, I've done the training, but actually my training was from early on. It's throughout my whole life. All the concepts, all the philosophy behind East Asian medicine, that was just part of everyday life, the language that we used. My granddad would look at my face, or my nan, and then they would just say, oh, you've got this going on, right, we need to make this tea, or you need to eat this. They could just see it on my face straight away. So all those, we just absorb it as like a sponge, so we don't even realise we're taking it on. So when I formally learnt it, as obviously I'm not saying that, my grandparents practiced acupuncture on me. No, they didn't. But they used herbs and they used food, and they used the language. So when I started practicing and learning formally, it was just reinforcing all that knowledge, making it more, putting more finesse to it. So that's why when I have my peers in the training, they would say, oh, May, you're like, you're like a savant. You're like Rain Man. Not sure if it is. It's just that I learn it faster. It's not a foreign language to me.
No, it's been with you. It's been with
Yeah,
you your whole life, hasn't it? And it's just the formal training brought it out more.
yeah,
You were able to connect. Now, when I go into a new job, I'm not just going into a new job and learning from scratch. I've got a whole lifetime of experience, and it's the same for you.
yeah. So to them, I mean, obviously, I'm gonna like take it on board if the people come in and say that I'm a savant. Yeah, okay, fine. I like that, but I think it's just the fact it's not a foreign language to me. So I was
Yeah.
saying that if I am learning more about Ayurveda, but that is different language to me. It's
What's AFA? Sorry.
so that's the in like Indian medicine, ancient Indian medicine, which have very similar principles, very similar concepts, but obviously the language is different. So that takes longer for me because it may help me appreciate that for other people, it's not so easy for them to
Yeah.
absorb. So that when I have clients coming into me for treatment, I've got this wealth of knowledge that's way beyond just my formal training. And over the phone, when they talk to me on the consultation, my brain's already going off, like thinking,
Mm.
right, okay, she said this, and this. And I'm subconsciously just picking up their tone of voice, how they appear, if it's a Zoom call. And I'm already making notes in my head what treatment
Mm.
I should give them. And sometimes if I haven't spoken to them on Zoom, I just spoke to them on the phone and they book straight away. By the time I greet them at the door, I'm already making assessments from the way they walk, from the way they come in, how they appear. We can see so much from people.
No, so you are really tuned into noticing, aren't you?
Yeah,
So do you think that because that is an art and it takes a long time to refine that,
yeah.
but do you think that comes from your Eastern Asia, the background, your Chinese
Mhm.
background and what you've been taught by your relatives, your training, and that commitment to stillness, to noticing you so you can do it for others? Would you describe it in that way?
I would indeed, yeah, because it was just something I've received in where I was growing up. I mean, the best doctors were trained. They if it's say like a family practice or people are trained from a really young age because it takes that long. So in effect, that's what's happened with me. It was just my upbringing. That's what the word I'm looking for. It was just my upbringing. I wasn't formally trained. My family weren't East Asian medicine doctors or anything, but I was formally trained because they had all that knowledge. I mean, I wasn't formally trained, but it's just my upbringing. So
Yeah.
then by the time I was formally trained, it's already ingrained in me. And then I was just able to bring it, and in a way, it brought it out. And like I said, I can read people, and just by looking at their face, I can tell what's going on with them. And those are like you say, that's the subtlety that you're supposed to learn and build on after, say someone had 3 years of a degree training. They By the time they come out, they haven't really learned. I don't think they've mastered those bits yet. And with my
Yeah.
massage background as well, that's helped because I've worked
Mm.
on many different body types, and now I can touch someone's body and know straight away where to go. And just from them telling me what the issue is, I know straight away where to go. The body is hard to explain. The client actually asked me, "How do you know? How do you just know?" It's like it's an intuition. It's
Yeah.
intuitive.
And I'd like to add something from something
Yeah.
that I've experienced. When you work seasonally and when you've worked with the cycles of the moon and you've done that for many years, you become so attuned to subtleties. It's almost like second you start to notice things like really tiny details. And I think that living with the cycles of the earth really helps to do that.
So, but like you say, it took years for you to
It took
get to
years.
that.
Yeah.
So when people ask that question, how long have you trained? I'm now going to say all my life because that is
Yeah.
okay. A bit of paper. I think in the modern world, people focus too much on pieces of paper. I
Yeah.
actually had someone who said this on Facebook. So she came from an egotistical point of view. She was saying, And I'm just wondering what your qualifications are, blah, 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 blah. I was hoping to, collaborate with you. It's just trying to be polite on it. And then she pointed out some stuff on my website. I did it myself for starters. So there were going to be some mistakes. And I just, practice gratitude. I just said, thank you for pointing out things that I need to correct on my website. Really grateful for that. I ignore the rest of the comment. I just thought I won't go into that. But I was thinking, okay, she's got a degree and she goes on stages talking, blah, blah, blah. I think she might have a PhD, I can't remember. And I'm like thinking, yes, I can have loads of bits of paper. Lots of people actually collect bits of paper. And I remember following a spiritual guru's teachings, and he was saying people just keep training and keep aiming for like the next bit of qualification and collecting all the qualifications in a folder. That's coming from ego. What's most important is the fact I've got decades of experience within a live clinic working with real clients with real issues. I know people have all these certificates but never really worked in a clinic setting. They just collect certificates because they've never had the courage to go out and work with the public. So if someone saw that, like, I actually do have 2 folders of paper, so it doesn't really matter, but someone just one piece of paper, okay? And then they compared it with the other person B, with a folder that's this big, loads and loads of paper. And if you just judge us from our paper, you might go with the person, wow, look at all those qualifications they've got. Well, they must be better. But
Wisdom doesn't come from pieces of paper, does it? It comes from lived experience.
Exactly. And that's where it comes in, because I've worked with people with different issues and because I've massaged different body types and I've used acupuncture now in my practice. I know what works and what doesn't. And then straight away, there's that intuition straight away. And I just know. I was saying to a friend, I'm treating her because she's got nerve pain. I said, oh, something just come to me. I know you got to book it in. She's booking in tomorrow. And I said, I know I've got something to me and I know exactly how to help you. And she was like, what is it? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it, but it does involve putting a needle in her butt. Yeah, it's very, very powerful point, because probably won't film that.
No, don't do a be real for it.
It will be magical. I've already got it planned. And usually when like the stuff I plan and when I execute it, people do afterwards just go, oh my God, that was just so amazing. I just feel so much better.
What is it you love about your work? Because you love it. It just oozes out of you. You love your work.
I do love my work because I just love helping people. That doesn't mean I give my work for free. It's like today I went to charity and I was massaging people for free. I don't like to say free. I was donating my time. I've donated my time to a local hospital as well, working with patients. But that doesn't mean, like, some people just say, oh yeah, why don't you just give free taster treatments? I've been there, I've done that. I'm past that now, and that's not coming from ego. That's just coming from a place where I don't need to prove myself that way by giving people free stuff. And people come for free stuff don't end up coming into clinic. They're just constantly searching for freebies. I was like, I need someone who respects themselves enough, who are willing to pay.
Because it's been with you for a long time and you really understand the intricacies, you know that you're using your lived experience, you know that you're using your intuition, you know that you're using ancient wisdom. Is this like a real sacredness in the work to you? Do you view it in that way? And I mean that in a non-egotistical way. I just mean it's something so important to you. So you recognize its value and you respect it and you know how it can help people. Do you hold it in that regard?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and I'm going to put that on social media, so I'm going to make a reel. Let me know if this is a great analogy. So it came to me, okay, today. I was thinking, it's like someone going to because I don't name names, I don't want a lawsuit. Say someone went to fast food chain, and they've got those fancy screens now where you can just order it yourself, self-service, and there's a menu, and you go up and go, oh, I fancy this burger, blah blah blah. Or you can go to fine dining restaurant. where you've got a chef who's traveled the world learning all kinds of cuisines from the top leading chefs. And they've got years of experience behind them where you just walk in, Andrea, and they straight away to be like, Andrea, I know the exact dish that will make you feel amazing after you've eaten it. It will just transport you to Paris after you've finished it. Right. So you're going to end up paying more for that experience. And as someone who's newly qualified, they might appreciate a client who comes in and just orders straight off a bog standard menu. That's fine. And so I'm basically the fine dining chef. That's where I see myself. And that's not either. It's like, it's quite hard to put this kind of stuff out there because I don't want people to have that backlash. Oh my gosh, she's got such a massive ego. It's not that.
I don't think you're coming from that place at all. It doesn't sound that, and I think it's kind of been an energy that's run through our conversation. There are people out there that perhaps don't have the experience, but everything's everything's shiny and glitzy. But in the background, there are people like yourself, the work that I've created, where we know we've nurtured this work, we know the intricacies, we know how it can work, and we know what it can do for people. And I think we need to be really confident about it. And also, I think, and this is for myself as well, but being really confident in this, what we've created, what we've got, and what we can do for people, almost like fighting our corner.
Yeah.
But no fighting, no violence, because we're not really into violence.
Just shouting about it.
Yes. May, it has been beautiful talking to you. I could literally go on for another hour.
Me too.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The conversation that I had with May was deep, meaningful, layered with intricacies and human complexity. We explored why massage can only take us so far and how the body is deeply interconnected, and why ancestral wisdom still has so much to teach us, especially when it comes to menopause. We talk about the yin and the yang energy, individual experiences of transition, blending science with deep intuition, and what it means when your training hasn't just been something you studied, but something that you've lived. There's an awful lot to unpick here, and so if you have any questions for May or I on the podcast today, there is a form in the show notes for you to submit any questions that you might like us to answer. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Connection Compass. If you think it will help someone else, please leave a review. And remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world.